Flame crawls along the roots of Fangorn like a living thing, licking up ancient bark, turning green memory to blackened bone. The air is thick with ash and the sharp, wet smell of sap bleeding from wounded trees. Above the roar of fire, there comes another sound, deeper and older. A chorus of voices like cracking ice and grinding stone, rising in a single, shuddering cry. Far to the east, where once only ploughed fields lay, something vast and long forgotten stirs, and the earth itself seems to lean toward the burning forest. If you enjoy these deep dives into alternate timelines of Middle-earth, consider liking the video and subscribing so you do not miss the next journey. Tell me in the comments which realm you would stand for in this version of the War of the Ring, and where in Arda you are watching from. The first change comes long before the flames, before the ring leaves the Shire, before Sauron's eye finds its full strength in the east. It begins in a field. The sun hangs low over the brown lands between the Anduin and the Efelduath. But these plains are not yet barren. They are quilted with tilled strips and orchards, with hedges of willow and elm, with neat dikes that glimmer with water. The smell here is of damp soil, crushed clover, and the faint sweetness of ripening fruit. Men of Gondor ride by sometimes, and folk out of Rohan, and wanderers from Dale or Dorwinion, and they speak of this place as a marvel. They call it the Garden March. In the midst of the march, where a broad stream bends like an arm, a woman of great height stands ankle-deep in the water. Her hair falls like a curtain of wheat around a face weathered as old bark, and her eyes are the color of new leaves. Her hands are sunk wrist-deep into the mud of the bank, gently pressing a sapling into place. "Deeper," she murmurs, and the sapling's thin roots shiver, pushing down. She is no woman of men, she is an Entwife. Her name among her own kind is long and slow as the unfolding of spring. But men who have worked her fields call her Brown Hair, and sometimes the Lady of Furrows. She has walked these lands since before Númenor rose, and she remembers when all this was wild scrub and tangle. She remembers the river when it ran clearer, the mountains when they smoked less, the sky when it held more birds. She remembers the day they left. Far away, Fangorn brooded under its own shade. The Ents had loved the deep woods, the tangled, untamed places. The Entwives had loved order and open sky, the turning of seasons in rows of grain. There had been quarrels, gentle and slow, but real. Then there had been a going. The Entwives had crossed the Anduin and not come back. Brown Hair lifts her hands from the earth and straightens. Her joints creak like old branches. Around her, other tall shapes move through the fields, some bending to prune, some walking slowly with baskets of fruit that seem small in their hands. Their hair is yellow like straw, black like rich soil, red like autumn leaves. The Entwives sing as they work, their voices weaving with the rustle of grain. Beyond the hedges, smaller figures move. Men and women, sunburnt and laughing, wave up at the tall gardeners. They call greetings in the common speech and in an older tongue that the Entwives taught their grandparents' grandparents. Children chase each other around the roots of pear trees, darting between the slow, careful feet. One boy, barefoot and muddy, stops and looks up at Brown Hair. "Lady," he says, squinting into her face, "will the trees be strong this year?" Brown Hair lowers her gaze. She sees the dust on his cheeks, the chipped tooth in his grin, the way his hand twists nervously in the hem of his tunic. She feels the soil's dampness cooling on her fingers. "They will be strong," she says. Her voice is soft, but it carries like a breeze through tall grass, unless the world grows too hot. The boy frowns, not understanding. He looks up at the sky. It is a clear blue with only a thin haze in the east. "What would make it hot?" he asks. Brown Hair does not answer. For a long moment she stands still, listening. Under her bare feet, the earth hums faintly. It is the song she has always known, the slow turning of seasons, the deep, patient life of roots and stone. Yet, of late, there is a discordant note, a faint grinding, like a whetstone drawn too hard along a blade. Fire, she thinks, though she has never yet seen the fires that will come. In the west, beyond the Anduin, Fangorn stirs. Treebeard stands upon a high knoll, his toes digging into the moss, his beard trailing over his chest like a fall of lichen. The light through the canopy is green and gold, and the smell is of pine and old rain. He is listening. He has been listening for a very long time. He hears the murmur of the Ents in the depths, their slow conversations about wind and water and the taste of different kinds of bark. He hears the smaller voices of birds and beasts, bright and quick. He hears, far away, the rush of the great river. He does not hear her. He rumbles, a sound like a distant avalanche. Whom? Once, when the world was younger, he had walked east with Quickbeam and others. They had crossed the Anduin in the shallows and gone among the new-planted orchards and the first straight rows of wheat. They had argued, in their slow way, about wildness and order. He had laughed when she had shown him a hedge trimmed into the shape of a deer. Now the hedges are far older, and Treebeard has not walked that way in an age. Still no word, Fangorn, says another voice, high and creaking. Quickbeam steps out from behind a beech, his hair a tangle of green twigs, his eyes bright. For an Ent, he is young and hasty. His hands flex restlessly. Treebeard does not turn his head. Moss has grown over one shoulder where he stood listening too long. No word, he says. No word, no returning feet. No singing on the east wind. Quickbeam shifts his weight, leaves rustling. They are stubborn, he says, stubborn as old stumps. They will not come unless they wish to. They have their gardens. They have their... hedges. Treebeard's eyes half close. They have their gardens, he repeats. And we have our woods. So it has been. So it may be. Yet under his slow words, there is a thread of unease. The world has changed around him. He has heard rumors from passing elves of a darkness growing in the east. Orcs have been seen in greater numbers in the foothills of the misty mountains. There is a restlessness in the roots. He remembers her hair in the sun, the way she had laughed when he had tripped over a low stone wall that had not been there the year before. He remembers the taste of an apple she had pressed into his hand. He remembers not going back. Far to the east, in the shadow of the dark land, Sauron broods in Barad-dûr. His eye scans the plains, the mountains, the river. It lingers briefly on the garden march, on the ordered fields and the tall, slow-moving figures. He does not yet see their full measure. Men, he thinks, or something akin to thought, burns in the lidless gaze. Farmers, slaves in waiting. The Nazgul whisper in the dark halls. Orcs drill in the ash plains. Smoke rises from the forges of Gorgoroth. Sauron's mind is turned toward greater prizes. Gondor, Rohan, the ring that he lost. The garden march lies between him and the river, a soft, green cushion. It is nothing, for now. Brownhair stands with her hands on her hips, looking east. The horizon there is a darker line, a faint smudge like soot on the sky. She has watched that smudge thicken over long years. She has watched men leave the march to go south to war, or west to seek safer lands. She has watched fewer come back. One evening, as the light fades to a coppery glow, a stranger comes to the garden march. He is a man, but taller than most, with hair like dark iron and a face lined with cares. He wears a cloak travel-stained and a sword at his side, though he walks as if the blade is a burden he would gladly set down. At his chest, under his shirt, something small and round presses cold against his skin. He is called Strider in the north, Thorongil in Gondor, and Aragorn among the Dúnedain. He is years yet from the day when he will stand before the Black Gate. Now he walks alone among the Entwives fields. The farmers watch him warily. This is no peddler, no wandering minstrel. His eyes are too keen, his step too silent. Yet there is something in his bearing that eases them, an old nobility, a sadness that matches the slow sorrow of the land. A girl runs ahead of him, barefoot in the dust. "Mother," she calls. "Mother, a ranger has come. From the west." Brownhair hears. She straightens from where she is, examining a row of beans, and turns. The sight of the man strikes her with a pang she cannot at first name. He moves like someone she once knew. The ranger stops at the edge of the field. He looks up, and for a moment his gaze meets hers. There is no fear in him at the sight of a creature from old tales. There is only a quiet recognition. "Lady," he says, bowing slightly, "I seek the mistress of these lands." Brownhair's lips curve in a slow smile. "You have found her," she says, "though I am no lady of men. What do you seek, son of the West?" Aragorn hesitates. He had heard, in Minas Tirith, rumors of the Garden March and its strange tall folk. Denethor had dismissed them as peasant tales. The captains had laughed. Yet something in the stories had tugged at him, and on his journey north he had turned aside to see. Now that he stands before her, he senses that this meeting is not chance. "I seek knowledge," he says, "and perhaps allies." A shadow grows in the east. You stand nearest to it of all free folk. Brownhair's eyes darken. She glances east, where the sky is bruised with distant smoke. "We have seen the shadow," she says. "We have felt its heat in the soil. Yet we are gardeners, not warriors." Aragorn looks around. He sees the straight rows, the fruit trees, the careful dikes. He sees the men and women who move among them, their hands rough with work, their shoulders strong. He sees the Entwives, tall and patient, moving with the same care they give to saplings. "Gardens must be defended," he says quietly, "or they will be trampled." Brownhair is silent for a moment. The breeze stirs her hair. Somewhere a lark sings, high and defiant. "You speak true," she says at last. "Yet we remember another shadow, long ago. We crossed the river to escape it. We left our Ents, our tree husbands. We thought to be safe here, in the open. We thought to make beauty out of order." She looks down at her hands, at the faint green glow beneath the bark of her skin. "We did not think the darkness would follow." Aragorn feels a tightening in his chest. He has heard songs of the Ents in Rivendell, from Elrond, and from wandering elves. He has heard the laments for the lost Entwives. He had not imagined he would stand face to face with one. "If the darkness comes," he says, "it will not stop at your fields. It will not spare your orchards. It will burn and poison and enslave. There is a forest in the west, Fangorn, where your kindred yet dwell. Have you no wish to see it again?" Brownhair's face is suddenly very still. The other Entwives nearby pause in their work, as if they have all heard the same note. "We have wished," she says. "Wishing is easy. Walking is harder." Aragorn's hand strays to his chest, to the small hard circle beneath his shirt. It is not the one ring that lies still with Gollum in his dark cave. This is another ring, plain and silver, that once belonged to Barahir, given to him by Elrond. It is a symbol of an old oath. He thinks, suddenly, of oaths broken and kept, of ancient friendships between elves and men, between men and other, stranger folk. He thinks of what is coming. "If war comes," he says, "will you stand alone in your fields, waiting for the fire? Or will you seek those who remember you? Brownhair looks west. For a moment, in her mind, she sees Fangorn as it was, deep and green, the air thick with the scent of needles and damp earth. She hears the slow, booming laughter, the creak of old limbs. She feels a hand, like a gnarled root, closing gently around her own. She had left without a farewell. The memory stings like frost. "We will think on your words," she says. Aragorn bows again. He knows better than to press. The decisions of such ancient beings will not be hurried by any man, even one who carries the blood of kings. "Then I will leave you with one more thought," he says. "If the shadow devours you here, there will be none to remember you in the west. But if you cross the river again, even in peril, your song may yet be heard in Fangorn." He turns and walks away, his cloak stirring the dust. The farmers watch him go. The children whisper. Brownhair stands very still until the last trace of him vanishes over a low rise. He speaks as if he has seen the end of things, murmurs another Entwife, her hair black as ploughed earth. "Men often do," Brownhair answers. "Their lives are short. They see endings in every change." Yet the ranger's words have lodged in her like a seed. That night, when the stars come out over the garden march, the Entwives gather in a wide, flat meadow. The men keep respectfully away, watching from the shadows of their cottages. They have seen such gatherings before, but not often. The last time had been when a great flood had come down from the north and threatened to wash away the lower fields. The Entwives had sung, and the water had turned aside. Now they stand in a circle, their tall forms silhouetted against the sky. Their voices rise and fall, slow and deep, in a language older than any spoken by men. They sing of roots and branches, of seed and harvest. They sing of choices made long ago. "We left," says one, whose hair is pale as straw. "We chose the sunlight and the plough. Are we to go crawling back to the shade?" "We did not crawl," says another, whose skin is dark and cracked like old bark. "We walked, we planted, we taught. The men here know our songs. They honor the earth. That is not crawling." "We are needed here," says a third. "If we leave, who will tend the fields? Who will keep the river in its bed? Men are hasty. They will strip the soil bare." Brownhair listens to them all. She feels the tug of the land under her feet. The garden march is not just a place to her. It is a living thing, a child grown under her care. To leave it would be like tearing out a part of her own heart. Yet, in the west, another root tugs at her. "Once," she says, "when the others have fallen silent, we walked with the Ents. We were not always apart. We chose this path, yes, but we did not choose to be forgotten. We did not choose for our song to be a lament in their mouths." She lifts her head. The stars glimmer in her eyes. The shadow grows. This land will not be spared. If we remain, we may hold it for a time, but we will stand alone. If we go, we may save something older than these fields. We may save ourselves. The others shift, the ground trembling faintly. "And the men?" asks the dark-barked Entwife. "Will we leave them to the fire?" Brownhair looks toward the clustered cottages, the thin lines of smoke rising from their chimneys. She hears a child laugh in its sleep, a dog bark once and fall quiet. "We have taught them much," she says slowly. "They know how to plant, how to tend, how to listen. They will not be helpless. And men are not as weak as we once thought. They will find their own strength, as they must. We cannot save everything. The words taste bitter. We can choose only where we will stand. For a long time, there is only the night wind and the distant murmur of the river. Then, One by one, the Entwives nod. "We will go," says Strawhair. "We will go," says Darkbark. "We will go," says another and another, until the whole circle has spoken. Not all are certain. Some sway as if in a storm. Some look east, toward the shadow, with a defiant anger. Some look west, with longing. But the decision, once made, is like a tree taking root. It will not be easily torn up. The next morning, the men of the garden march wake to the sound of deep voices chanting. They come out of their houses, blinking in the pale light. They see the Entwives gathered at the edge of the fields, facing west. Their hair catches the dawn, turning it to gold and copper and dark fire. Brownhair steps forward. The farmers fall silent. "We are going," she says. Her voice carries to the farthest hedge. "We must cross the river. There is a forest that has waited long for us." A murmur runs through the crowd. Some cry out in dismay. "You cannot leave us," says a man whose beard is more grey than black. "Who will keep the floods back? Who will sing to the seeds?" "We will be burned," says a woman, clutching a baby to her chest. "The east grows darker every year. You know this land. You have held it safe. Without you, we are only men." Brownhair feels their fear like a cold wind. She remembers their fathers and grandfathers, the first who had come trembling to her fields, asking to learn. She remembers their clumsy hands, their wonder at a seed sprouting in their palms. "You are not only anything," she says gently. "You are yourselves. You have learned. You have strength you do not yet know. We have given you what we could. We cannot give you eternity." A child steps forward. It is the boy who had asked if the trees would be strong. "Will you come back?" he asks. Brownhair kneels, the ground shaking slightly. She looks into his eyes. "I do not know," she says. "The world is changing. We are slow, but even we cannot stop it. If there is a path, perhaps we will find it. If not," she reaches out and touches his shoulder, very lightly. "Remember how to plant in straight lines," she says. "Remember not to take more than the soil can give. Remember that the earth is not yours to own, only to tend." The boy nods, tears bright on his cheeks. "We will remember," he whispers. The Entwives turn west. They do not hurry. They are incapable of hurrying in the way men understand it. Yet there is a firmness in their stride that men have never seen before. The ground seems to rise to meet their feet. The hedges bow as they pass. Behind them, the garden march stands quiet. The men watch until the last tall shape disappears over the low hills. Then they turn back to their fields, to their tools, to their fear. Far to the north, in a dark cave by an underground lake, Gollum whispers to himself and clutches the ring. Far to the west, in the Shire, Bilbo Baggins sits by his fire and writes. In Rivendell, Elrond feels a faint tremor in the tapestry of the world and pauses, his hand hovering over a page. "What was that?" murmurs Gandalf, looking up from his pipe. Elrond's eyes are distant. "Old roots moving," he says softly. "Old wounds stirring." On the eastern bank of the Anduin, the Entwives come to the water. The river is broad here, its surface dimpled with light. The smell of it is fresh and cold. They remember crossing this way long ago when they went east. Then the west bank had been a wall of dark forest, the east a promise of open land. Now the west is still green, but there is a thin haze in the air from the forges of Isengard. Far to the south, Brownhair stands at the water's edge. She feels the current tug at her toes. "We go back," she says. The others murmur assent. They wade in. The water rises to their knees, their waists, their chests. They are tall, they do not need boats. Fish scatter around their legs. The river, which has known them for long ages, hums with recognition. On the western bank, hidden among reeds, a pair of yellow eyes watches. An orc scout from Mordor, sent north along the river to spy on traffic, crouches low. He has never seen such beings. His first instinct is fear, his second, greed. They are tall, strong. Their hides look tough. His master will want to know. He slinks away through the rushes, heading south with all the speed he can muster. By the time the Entwives reach the western shore, the first tidings of their movement are already on their way to Barad-dûr. They climb out of the water, their bark skin shining, their hair dripping. They stand for a moment, feeling the ground. It is different here, wilder. The soil is thinner, the roots of the trees tangled and deep. Brownhair takes a breath. The air smells of pine and leaf mold, of distant snow. Home, she says, and the word is both strange and familiar. They begin to walk. The land rises in low ridges, the trees close in. The light grows green and dappled. Birdsong echoes from unseen branches. Here and there they pass old ruins, half swallowed by moss, a broken wall, a toppled pillar. Once, Brownhair pauses by a stone carved with curling letters in a tongue she does not know. She lays her hand on it. Men, she says, they come and go. The stones remember them. The forest thickens. The trunks grow larger, the canopy higher. The path, such as it is only a faint suggestion between roots and shadows. At the edge of Fangorn, the Entwives stop. Before them rises a wall of ancient trees, their bark furrowed, their branches interwoven. The air inside is dim and cool. It smells of age. Brownhair steps forward. Her heart, slow as the turning of seasons, beats faster. Fangorn, she says softly, we have come back. The forest does not answer. For a moment, there is only the creak of branches in the wind. Then, deep within, a voice speaks. Who comes? It says, walking on two legs, treading on my roots. The ground trembles with the words. Birds explode from the canopy in a flurry of wings. Brownhair feels the sound in her bones. We do, she answers. We who left, we who planted in the sun, we who were sung of in your laments. There is a long silence. Then, from between two great beeches, a figure emerges. Treebeard is older than any living thing that walks in Middle-earth, save perhaps for a few of the elves. His bark is thick and grey, his beard a cascade of moss and lichen. His eyes are deep wells of green light. He moves slowly, but every step is deliberate, the earth bending slightly under his weight. He stops when he sees them. His eyes widen. He says. Whom? Hroom. Quickbeam appears at his side, his expression uncharacteristically frozen. By the roots of the mountains, he whispers. It is they. Treebeard takes another step, then another. His hands lift, then fall, as if unsure whether to reach out. You came, he says. The words are simple, but they carry the weight of ages. Brownhair feels something crack inside her, like a seed coat splitting. We came, she says. We were late. Treebeard's lips twitch in something like a smile. You are Ents, he says. Late is your way. There is laughter then, deep and rolling, mingled with a thinner, higher sound, like wind in reeds. The Entwives and Ents stand facing each other, separated by a few paces and by centuries of absence. Quickbeam cannot bear it. With a rustle of leaves, he strides forward and gathers one of the Entwives into his arms, lifting her off the ground. She squeals, a sound of shock and delight. You are real, he says. You are not only in songs, hasty songs, at that. Put me down, you foolish sapling, she laughs. thumping his shoulder. Treebeard and Brownhair move more slowly. They stand before each other, ancient faces lined with memory. "I thought you were gone," he says. "Gone beyond even my walking." "We thought you had forgotten," she answers. "We heard no footsteps on the east wind." Treebeard's eyes close briefly. "I walked once," he says. "Long ago. I went as far as the river. I did not cross. I thought you would come back when you wished." Brownhair reaches out. Her hand, rough and knotted, rests on his arm. "We wished," she says. "We did not know how." They stand like that for a time, the forest around them holding its breath. Far to the south, in Isengard, Saruman the White stands on his balcony and looks toward the north. His eyes are keen, his mind sharper still. He has heard whispers on the wind of strange movements in the woods, of tall shapes crossing the river. He frowns. "Entwives," he says aloud, tasting the word, so the old tales stir. At his feet, Wormtongue shifts uneasily. "Ents are dangerous," Saruman continues. "Slow, yes, but dangerous when roused. If the Entwives have joined them, that is a route I did not account for." He turns and looks at the circle of Isengard, at the new pits he has dug, the furnaces he has lit. Smoke stains the sky. The trees of the valley lie in heaps, their trunks stripped, their branches charred. "Perhaps," he murmurs, "I must move faster." In Barad-dûr, Sauron receives the report from the Orc scout. He sees, in the mind of his servant, the tall shapes crossing the Anduin, the glimmer of green in their skin. He is not Saruman. He does not know the old tales of Ents and Entwives as well, yet he is no fool. Creatures of Yavanna, he thinks, and there is a flicker of old hatred. Tree herds, gardeners, they kept the forests from my hand in the elder days. His eye narrows. If they gather, he thinks, they may be a thorn. A small one, but thorns fester. He considers sending a host north at once, to burn the western bank, to cut down any tall shapes he finds. Yet other matters press. The ring is still lost. Gondor still stands. His strength, though great, is not yet complete. "Watch them," he commands. "Send more scouts. If they move, I will know." In Lothlorien, under the golden boughs of Caras Galadon, Galadriel stands at the mirror. The water ripples, showing her many things. A small hobbit in a green country, a dark tower, a white hand on a field of black. For a moment, the image shifts, and she sees tall women of bark and leaf walking into a deep forest, their hands joined with those of tall men of trunk and branch. She smiles, very slightly. "So," she says, "the Entwives return." Celeborn, at her side, raises an eyebrow. "I had thought them lost," he says. "Nothing planted with love is ever wholly lost," Galadriel answers. "It may lie dormant, it may sleep, but given the right season, she trails off, her gaze distant." "This will change things," she says softly. The music shifts. The trees will have a voice in the war to come. In Fangorn, that voice is already rising. The Entmoot is called. It takes time. Ents are scattered through the forest, each with his own grove, his own thoughts. They must be summoned by deep, booming calls that roll through the trunks like thunder. The Entwives, patient as they are, feel the waiting stretch. They gather in a wide, grassy dell, ringed by ancient trees. The ground is soft underfoot, the air cool. Sunlight slants through the canopy in golden shafts. Birds flit in and out of the beams. Treebeard stands in the center, Brownhair at his side. Quickbeam paces at the edge, his fingers twitching. The other Entwives cluster together, their hair catching the light. One by one, the Ents arrive. Beachbone, his limbs smooth and pale. Skinbark, gnarled and knotted. Leaflock. His hair, a wild tangle of green. They come slowly, but they come. Each, upon seeing the Entwives, stops and stares, their eyes widening, their mouths falling open. By the water and the stone, murmurs Beachbone. It is. They are. Leaflock, less articulate, bursts into tears, his leaves shaking. Long has it been, says Skinbark, his voice creaking. Long and long. The dell fills with tall shapes, with the scent of bark and leaf and old earth. The air hums with a deep, slow energy. Treebeard lifts his hands. We are met, he says. We are met, at last, as we should have been. Ents and Entwives, together. A murmur runs through the gathering, a sound like wind in 1,000 branches. There is much to say, Treebeard continues. Much to remember, much to forgive. His eyes flick to Brownhair, then away. But the world does not wait for our talking. A shadow grows. The men say that Sauron has risen again in the east. Saruman cuts down trees in the south. The dwarves dig, the elves sail, the men fight. And we must decide what we will do. He looks around at them all, at the weathered faces, the bright eyes, the slow, strong hands. We have been tree herds, he says. We have guarded the woods. We have watched. We have walked. But the world beyond our roots has changed. The fire comes closer every year. If we stand still, it will find us in the end. If we move, we may yet shape where it burns. Brownhair steps forward. We left once, she says. We thought to avoid the fire. We planted our gardens in the open. We thought the shadow would not cross the river. We were wrong. It grew, as all things do, until it reached us. We have come back because we will not run again. Her voice hardens. We will stand here with you. We will defend this forest and all that grows near it, but we cannot do it alone. We are Entwives. We know the ways of the plough, the hedge, the dike. You are Ents. You know the deep roots, the mountain paths. Together, we may be more than we were apart. Quickbeam slams his foot into the ground, making the earth jump. Whom? He cries. Yes. Yes. Let us go to war. Let us tear down the stone houses of those who burn trees. Let us pull their towers down with our hands. Some of the older Ents shake their heads slowly. War is hasty, rumbles Skinbark. We are not hasty. Leaflock wipes his eyes with a leafy hand. We must think, he says. Think long, think deep. This is our way. The Entwives exchange glances. They remember this. The endless talking, the slow turning of minds like seasons. Brownhair takes a breath. Think, she says. Yes, think, but think with us. Think of the men who live at your borders. Think of the hobbits in their holes, the elves in their golden woods. Think of the fields that will be ash if you do nothing. She steps closer to Treebeard. Think of what it will mean if the last trees of Middle-earth burn. Treebeard looks at her. For a moment, his eyes are very old and very tired. I have thought of that, he says, for a long time, longer than men have had kingdoms, longer than Saruman has had a tower. I have thought, and I have done nothing. He closes his eyes. Perhaps it is time to do something. The Entmoot begins. It is not a short talk. It is not even, by Ent standards, a very long one. Yet to any other creature, it would seem endless. They speak of Sauron, of Saruman, of men and elves and dwarves. The Entwives speak of the Garden March, of the orc scouts they saw at a distance, of the smoke on the eastern horizon. The Ents speak of trees felled in the valley of Isengard, of orcs with axes in the foothills of the misty mountains. They speak of the old stories, of Yavanna's tears when the dwarves were made, of the promise that there would be tree herds to guard the forests. They speak of the long years of watching. They do not all agree. We should close our borders, says one. We should thicken our woods, tangle our roots, let no man or orc pass. Let the world burn beyond our shade if it must. We will endure. We should go east, says another. We should march to Mordor itself and tear down its black gates. We are strong. We are many. We could crush their towers like rotten stumps. We should go south, says a third. Saruman is nearer. His axes bite our kin. We should make an end of him before he grows too strong. The Entwives listen, their faces grave. Brownhair feels the pull of each suggestion. To close themselves off would be safest. To go east would be boldest. To go south would be most immediate. Yet she remembers Aragorn's face, the weight in his voice. If the shadow devours you here, there will be none to remember you in the west. At last, when the sun has moved from one side of the dell to the other and back again, when the birds have gone from song to silence and back to song, Treebeard raises his hands. We have spoken, he says. We have thought. We have remembered. Now we must choose. He looks at Brownhair. We will not close ourselves, he says. We have been closed too long. The world moves, and we must move with it. We will not go east, not yet. Mordor is strong, and we are not as many as we once were, but we will not do nothing. He turns his gaze south. We will go to war, he says. We will march on Isengard. A murmur, half fear, half exultation, runs through the gathering. We will tear down the tower of him who fells trees for his engines, Treebeard continues. We will flood his pits and drown his fires. We will show the world that the forest has teeth. Quickbeam whoops, a sound like a cracking branch. The Entwives stand straighter. And after? Asks Skinbark. After Isengard? Treebeard's eyes are distant. After, he says, we will see. The world will not end with Saruman, but his fall will shake it. Perhaps then others will come to us. Perhaps then we will not stand alone. In the garden march, the men plant their spring crops without the guidance of the Entwives. The furrows are not as straight. The seeds are not as evenly spaced. The dikes are not as perfectly tended. Yet the men work with a new intensity. They know now that they cannot rely on tall shadows to stand between them and the east. They must become their own hedge. One evening, as the sun sets red over the river, a band of orcs comes out of the foothills of the Efel Duath. They creep across the brown lands, their eyes gleaming, their blades ready. They have been sent to raid, to burn, to test the defenses of this soft green border. They expect little resistance. They find men waiting for them. The farmers have gathered with pitchforks and old swords, with hunting bows and axes. They stand in a line at the edge of the fields, their faces pale but set. The boy with the chipped tooth grips a spear twice his height. The grey-bearded man who had begged the Entwives to stay stands at the center, his shoulders squared. This is our land, he says, his voice shaking only a little. We will not run. The orcs laugh, a harsh, grating sound. Then the ground under their feet shifts. Roots, deep and thick, twist suddenly, tripping them. The soil heaves like a living thing. The hedges that line the fields rustle, their branches whipping out to catch at legs and arms. The men of the garden march stagger, but they do not fall. They have walked these fields all their lives. They know the feel of the earth. Lady, whispers the boy, his eyes wide. He feels, just for a moment, a presence in the soil, a slow, deep awareness, far away but still connected. Brownhair, in Fangorn, has not forgotten her gardens. She cannot be in two places at once. She cannot uproot herself and still be rooted. But the songs she sang into the soil, the care she poured into the hedges and dikes, left an echo. The land itself remembers her. As the orcs flail, caught in the sudden tangle, the men charge. The battle is short and brutal. Blood darkens the furrows. The orcs are fierce, but they are disoriented, cursing the treacherous ground. The men fight with desperation born of the knowledge that there is nowhere to run. When it is over, the fields are scarred. Several men lie still among the trampled crops. The boy with the chipped tooth kneels beside one of them, sobbing. The grey-bearded man stands, panting, his sword dripping. He looks down at the soil under his feet. "Thank you," he says. Very softly, the earth hums faintly in response. In Fangorn, Brownhair feels a distant tug, a faint ache. She closes her eyes and murmurs a blessing under her breath. "Grow," she whispers. "Grow again." The Ents and Entwives march. It is a sight no one in Middle-earth has seen before. They move south along the eastern slopes of the misty mountains, their long strides eating the ground. The forest seems to go with them, trees leaning, branches reaching, roots stirring. Birds fly ahead of them in flocks, alarmed and excited. Animals slip away from their path, sensing something vast and unstoppable. The sound of their passing is like a distant storm. In Rohan, riders on the Eastfold pause on a ridge and stare, their horses tossing their heads nervously. "What in the name of the mark is that?" mutters one. "Trees," says another, his voice awed. "Trees that walk." In Isengard, Saruman receives reports from his spies. He hears of movement in the north, of a darkening of the forest, of a sound like thunder. He tightens his grip on his staff. "Fools," he says, "wooden fools. Do they think to assail Orthanc? Stone is stronger than wood. Fire is stronger than leaf." He sends orders. More orcs to the walls. More oil for the cauldrons. More arrows fletched. He does not understand what is coming. The night before they reach Isengard, the Ents and Entwives camp in a shallow valley. They do not need fire, nor shelter, nor food in the way men do. They stand in small groups, murmuring, their voices a low rumble. Brownhair stands with Treebeard on a small knoll. The stars are bright above them. "Do you fear?" she asks. Treebeard is silent for a long time. "Yes," he says at last. "I fear for my trees. I fear for my people. I fear that we are too late. We are always too late." Brownhair looks at him. "We were late in coming back," she says, "but we are here. That is something." Treebeard nods slowly. "It is," he says. "It is more than I had hoped. Once." He hesitates. "I was angry," he says. "When you left, I did not understand. I thought you did not care for the old woods." Brownhair's face softens. "We cared," she says. "We cared in a different way. We wanted to shape, to order, to bring forth fruit. You wanted to guard, to preserve. We thought we could do that better in the open. We thought we could be ourselves." She looks up at the stars. "We were wrong in some things," she says. "Right in others. That is the way of growing." Treebeard's hand, rough and heavy, closes gently around hers. "I was wrong too," he says. "I thought you would always be there. Even if I did not go to you, I did not think enough." He sighs, a sound like wind in deep caverns. "We have much to learn from each other still," he says. After Isengard, Brownhair answers, "We will have time." They do not know yet how little time the world will give them. At dawn, they come to the valley of Isengard. The ring of stone stands stark against the sky, its walls high and smooth. Within, the Tower of Orthanc rises like a black spike, its 4 sharp horns catching the light. Smoke coils up from pits within the circle. The air smells of coal and hot metal, of oil and filth. Where once there had been a green bowl of trees and grass, there is now only devastation. The stumps of felled trees jut from the earth like broken teeth. The soil is churned to mud, slick with oil. Great wheels turn, driven by gears and chains. Orcs swarm like ants. The Ents and Entwives stop at the edge of the ruin. Treebeard's face darkens. He has a mind of metal and wheels, he says bitterly. He does not care for growing things. Brownhair looks at the stumps. She feels their pain, the sudden severing of long lives. She steps forward. Sing, she says. The Entwives lift their voices. It is not a song of growth or harvest. It is not a gentle song. It is a song of wrath, of roots breaking stone, of hedges turned to thorns. It is the fury of the earth when ploughed too deep, of rivers when dammed. The Ents join them, their deeper voices rising like thunder. The air vibrates with sound. Within Isengard, orcs stagger, clutching their ears. Saruman, on his balcony, feels the stone of Orthanc tremble. "Shoot!" he cries. "Burn them all!" Arrows fly from the walls, hissing down. They strike bark and leaf, some embedding, some glancing off. The Ents roar, more in anger than pain. The Entwives flinch, sap oozing from shallow wounds. Then they move. They crash against the ring of Isengard like a green tide. Hands like roots dig into the stone. Fingers find cracks, however small. Muscles older than kingdoms strain. The wall shudders. "Break!" cries Quickbeam, his eyes blazing. "Break, you stone prison!" The wall cracks. Pieces fall inward, crushing orcs. The Ents pour through the gaps, their feet sinking into the oil-slick mud. They wade toward the pits, toward the furnaces. Saruman watches, his face pale. "Fire!" he screams. "Pour the oil! Light it!" Flames blossom in the pits, roaring up. Orcs heave buckets of burning oil over the sides, aiming at the advancing Ents and Entwives. The first splashes hit. Bark blackens, leaves curl. Brownhair feels heat sear her arm. She grits her teeth and keeps going. "Water!" she cries. The Entwives, who have known rivers in their gentler moods, now call them in anger. Beyond the ring, the Isen and its tributaries hear. They swell, their currents quickening. The ground trembles as water, called by ancient songs, changes its course. A roar rises, deeper than any voice. The river comes. It surges over the broken walls, a brown, churning flood. It crashes into the pits, dousing flames, sending up clouds of steam. It lifts orcs off their feet, hurling them against stone and metal. It soaks the burning bark of the Ents and Entwives, hissing. Treebeard wades through the torrent like a mountain walking. He reaches one of the great wheels and wraps his arms around its axle. With a groan of splitting wood and bending iron, he tears it free. He swings it like a club, smashing into a cluster of orcs. Brownhair goes to a pit where a great furnace roars. She sinks her fingers into the stone rim. It is hot, but she does not let go. "Down," she says. The stone cracks. The pit collapses inward, swallowing the fire. Steam explodes upward, scalding orcs on the rim. The smell of burning flesh and quenched metal fills the air. On the balcony, Saruman clutches the rail. "Fools," he says, his voice shaking. "You destroy what could have saved you. With my engines, I would have broken Sauron. I would have remade the world. There would have been order. There would have been peace." His words are lost in the roar. Quickbeam reaches the base of Orthanc and begins to pound on it with his fists. "Come out," he shouts. "Come out, tree fella. Come out and see what your axes have brought." Orthanc does not crack. It is older and stronger than any work of Saruman's. Its black stone turns aside even the might of the Ents. But the ring of Isengard is no longer a fortress. It is a bowl filling with water and ruin. In the chaos, a small figure clings to a broken beam, gasping. Grima Wormtongue, half drowned, hauls himself onto a floating plank. He coughs, spitting water and blood. He looks around at the destruction, at the towering forms of Ents and Entwives, and feels a cold, animal fear. "Monsters," he whispers. He paddles toward a gap in the wall, away from the flood, away from Saruman's screams. He will carry tales of this day to others. He will speak of trees that walk and towers that fall. The Ents and Entwives do not notice him. They are focused on their work. By nightfall, Isengard is a lake. Where there were pits and forges, there is now only water, dark and slick. The stumps of felled trees protrude like drowned bodies. The ring wall is broken in many places. Orc corpses bob in the eddies. Orthanc still stands, black and unbroken, in the center. Saruman is trapped within. Treebeard stands in the shallows, water lapping at his knees. His bark is scorched in places, his beard singed. Brownhair stands beside him, her hair damp, her arms streaked with sap and soot. "It is done," she says. Treebeard nods slowly. "It is begun," he corrects. Far away, in the Emyn Muil, Frodo Baggins and Samwise Gamgee pick their way through razor rocks, unaware of the storm that has broken over Isengard. In Edoras, Theoden sits under Wormtongue's influence, his mind clouded. In Rivendell, Elrond feels the tremor and looks south. "The tree herds have woken," he says. Gandalf, newly returned from the battle with the Balrog, hears and smiles grimly. "That will give Saruman something to think about," he says. And Sauron, when he hears of it, Sauron does hear. His eye turns briefly toward Isengard. He sees the broken walls, the flooded pits, the black spike of Orthanc rising from a lake. He is not pleased. Saruman, he thinks, has failed me. He is angered by the loss of a potential ally, but more by the implication. The trees move, he thinks. The old powers stir. Yavanna's children do not sleep as soundly as I believed. He considers, again, sending a host north to burn Fangorn. Yet the timing is ill. His gaze is drawn, inexorably, toward the small movement of the ring, now leaving the Emyn Muil and heading toward the dead marshes. His attention cannot be everywhere. He makes a choice. Let the trees have their victory, he thinks. For now, it will not save them in the end. In Fangorn, the Ents and Entwives return, slower than they went. They are weary in a way they have never known. Their bark is scarred. Some among them do not come back. Leaflock is gone, burned too deeply to be saved when a vat of oil overturned upon him. Another Ent, younger, was crushed when a falling beam struck his head. An Entwife with hair like autumn leaves was pierced through by a great spear and sank beneath the flood. They stand in a clearing and sing their names, long and slow. The song rises into the canopy and out across the plains, a lament that even men hear faintly as a sudden chill. Brownhair stands with her head bowed. "We chose," she says softly. "We stood. We have lost, and we will lose more before the end." Treebeard lays a hand on her shoulder. "We would have lost more if we had done nothing," he says. "We would have lost all." In Rohan, the riders of the Mark find the road to Isengard blocked by water. They see the broken walls, the drowned pits, the tower rising from the lake. They see the footprints of giant trees in the mud. Gandalf with them smiles. "The old world is not as powerless as some would think," he says. Theoden, freed now from Wormtongue's poison, looks at the ruin. "Then we are not alone," he says. "In this war, even the trees fight." The news spreads. In Minas Tirith, Denethor hears of Isengard's fall and scoffs. "Trees," he says. "Fairy tales. No army of bark will come to the aid of Gondor." Yet in the streets, the common folk whisper of walking forests. They look at the withered trees in the citadel and wonder. In Lothlorien, Galadriel hears and nods. "The world remembers itself," she says. In the Shire, months later, Sam Gamgee will sit in the Green Dragon and listen, wide-eyed, to a wandering dwarf who speaks of a tower pulled down by trees. He will think of the party tree, of the small woods around Hobbiton, and feel a stirring of something he cannot name. The war moves on. The Fellowship breaks at Amon Hen. Boromir falls. Frodo and Sam go alone toward Mordor, with Gollum creeping behind. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli chase orcs across the plains of Rohan. Gandalf rides to Edoras. The battles of the Hornburg and the Pelennor fields await. Yet in this timeline, there is another presence in the great pattern. The Ents and Entwives do not return wholly to their old ways after Isengard. They have tasted war. They have seen stone fall. They have felt fire. They begin to look outward more often. Scouts go to the edges of Fangorn, watching the plains of Rohan, the river, the foothills of the Misty Mountains. Entwives walk north to the borders of Lothlorien, speaking with the Galadrim, sharing songs of soil and root. Brownhair goes west, alone, one day. She walks to the wold, where the grass rolls in long waves. She stands on a low hill and looks toward the horizon. She sees, faint in the distance, the white line of the Anduin. Beyond it, a smudge that might be the Garden March. Her heart aches. Are they safe? She wonders. Are they standing? Have they remembered? She cannot know. The world is too large, her steps too slow. She is bound now to Fangorn in a way she was not to the Garden March. Her roots, metaphorical and otherwise, have sunk deep. She turns back, but the thought of the men she left does not leave her. In the Garden March, the men harvest without her. The crops are thinner this year. The battle with the orcs trampled many fields. Some seeds did not sprout as they should. The dikes, without Entwife hands, have begun to crumble in places. Yet the men work. They patch the dikes with their own hands. They learn, by trial and error, how deep to plant, how much to water. They argue about when to harvest, about which seeds to save. They make mistakes. They learn from them. The boy with the chipped tooth is older now. His shoulders have broadened. He walks the fields with a measuring eye, his bare feet feeling the soil. He stops sometimes and presses his hand to the ground. "Lady," he says softly, "are we doing it right?" The earth hums back. Faint but not silent. He smiles. "We will keep it," he says. "We will keep your garden. In Minas Tirith, the beacons are lit. Fire leaps from mountain to mountain." Rohan answers. The Rohirrim ride. The Pelennor fields run red. In this timeline, there is one more movement on that great day. As the Rohirrim charge, their horns crying, as the Haradrim's Mumakil thunder, as the Witch King faces Gandalf at the broken gate, the ground far to the north of the city begins to tremble. Faramir, lying pale in the houses of healing, does not feel it. Pippin, running through the streets in his livery of the guard, does not feel it. The men on the walls, their eyes fixed on the black sea of Mordor's host, do not feel it. But the roots do. They have been listening. Fangorn is far from Minas Tirith. The Ents and Entwives cannot march there in a day, or a week, or even a month. They are not in time for the Pelennor. They are not in time to see Éowyn stand against the Witch King, or to hear the horns of Rohan echo off the Ramma's Echo. But they have been thinking, in their slow way, of how they might aid those beyond their immediate reach. Brownhair stands in a glade, her hands sunk into the soil. "Deeper," she murmurs, "deeper." The roots under her fingers twist, slowly. They are not the roots of Fangorn alone. They are the deep, tangled network that underlies much of Middle-earth, the silent web that binds hill to hill, forest to field. She sings. It is a strange song, even for an Entwife. It is part of the old songs of growth, and part of something new, something learned in the Garden March and sharpened at Isengard. It speaks of connection, of distant fields and near forests, of water and stone. Far away, in the Pelennor fields, the soil under the feet of orcs and men shivers. It is not much. A faint heave, a subtle shift. Yet, in the chaos of battle, small things can have large consequences. An orc charging at a gap in the line stumbles as the ground dips. His spear goes high, missing the throat of a Gondorian soldier and glancing off his helm instead. The soldier, spared, thrusts back and kills him. A Mumak, its foot sinking slightly in suddenly softer earth, stumbles. Its driver loses his balance and falls, breaking his neck. The beast veers, crashing into a knot of Haradrim instead of the Rohirrim it had been bearing down upon. A siege tower, being rolled toward the walls, sinks a few inches into the ground. The orcs pushing its strain, cursing. The delay is small, but it gives the defenders on the wall time to bring up more stones, more arrows. No one on the field understands why the ground behaves so. They assume it is the will of the Valar, or a quirk of the land, or nothing at all. In Fangorn, Brownhair gasps, her bark skin beading with sap. The effort is enormous. She is not Yavanna. She cannot remake the world with a thought. She can only nudge, coax, persuade. Treebeard lays a hand on her back, lending his strength. "Careful," he says. "Do not break yourself." "I will not," she answers through gritted teeth. "But I will bend." The Battle of the Pelennor is still won by the courage of men and hobbits, by the charge of the Rohirrim, by the fall of the Witch King. Yet in this timeline, when the songs are later sung, there is a verse, small but insistent, about the earth itself rising against the hosts of Mordor. Some say it is only a metaphor. Some say it is more. After the Pelennor, after the Houses of Healing, after the council where it is decided to march on the Black Gate, Aragorn stands for a moment alone on a balcony of Minas Tirith. The city is quiet in the late afternoon. The sky is clear. The white tree, still dead, stands in the court below, its branches bare. Aragorn looks east, toward Mordor, then north, toward the faint line of the misty mountains. He thinks of the Garden March. He thinks of Brownhair's face. He wonders if she reached Fangorn. He wonders if she is still standing. He feels, suddenly, a faint vibration under his feet. It is nothing, perhaps. The city is built on stone. Yet in that moment, he feels as if the rock itself is humming, a low, distant note. He smiles. "We are not alone," he murmurs. At the Black Gate, when Aragorn and the host of the West stand before the might of Mordor, when Sauron's armies pour out in a black tide, when Frodo and Sam struggle up the slopes of Mount Doom, the Ents and Entwives are far away. They do not march to the Morannon. They cannot. Their steps are too slow. Their roots are too deep. Yet they do something else. In Fangorn, in the Garden March, in Lothlorien, In every place where trees still stand in any number, they sing. They sing of endurance, of stone worn down by water, of fire that burns out, of seeds that lie dormant through winter and sprout in spring. They sing of all the ages they have seen, of the rise and fall of powers. Their song is not heard by men, it is not heard by elves, it is not heard by hobbits, or dwarves, or orcs, it is heard by the world itself. When the ring is cast into the fire, when Barad-dûr falls, when Sauron's spirit is blown away like smoke, the earth shakes. Mountains crack, the plains of Gorgoroth heave. In that chaos, the song of the Ents and Entwives is a thread of steadiness. The cracks in the earth close more gently than they might have. The lava flows are diverted, slightly, away from certain valleys. The ash that rises is caught by winds that carry it, in time, to fall as a thin, dark rain over the brown lands and the Emyn Muil. In the garden march, the boy with the chipped tooth, now a man with a scar across his cheek, looks up at the sky as black flakes drift down. He holds out his hand. "Ash," he says. He rubs it between his fingers. It is fine, like flour. He goes to the fields and sprinkles it lightly over the soil. "Lady," he says softly, "if this is from your enemy, we will turn it to our good." The next year's harvest is strangely rich. In Mordor, the land is broken, but not wholly dead. Sauron is gone, his orcs scatter, hunted and afraid. The plains of Gorgoroth, once a blasted wasteland, are cracked and blackened. Yet, here and there, in the years that follow, small green shoots push up through the ash. No one knows why. Some say it is the mercy of the Valar. Some say it is the lingering power of the ring, twisted to a new purpose. Some, very few, whisper of old songs sung by beings older than kingdoms. In the years of the Fourth Age, when King Elessar rules in Gondor and Arnor, when the hobbits rebuild the Shire, when Gimli leads dwarves to the glittering caves and Legolas brings elves to Ithilien, the Ents and Entwives face a new question. What now? They have avenged Isengard. They have aided, in their slow way, the defeat of Sauron. The Great War is over. Men rule the world. Fangorn stands, deep and green. The garden march, though scarred, still yields crops. Lothlorien fades as its lady departs over the sea. The elves diminish, the dwarves delve, the hobbits plant and smoke and sing. The Ents and Entwives gather once more in their dell. Treebeard is older still, his bark is thicker, his beard longer. Brownhair's hair is streaked with grey, though what grey means for an Entwife is hard to say. Quickbeam is less hasty now, his leaves darker. "We have done what we can," Treebeard says. "The world of men begins. Our time may be ending." The words hang in the air. The Entwives look at each other. "Must we end?" asks Strawhair. "We are not like elves, to sail. We are not like men, to die. We are trees that walk. Can we not simply keep walking?" "Where?" asks Darkbark. "The forests shrink. Men plant, yes, but their trees are not like ours. They cut them young. They tame them. They do not let them grow old." Brownhair thinks of the garden march, of the straight rows, of the hedges. She thinks of Fangorn, of the wild tangle. "We could go back," she says. "We could return to the march. We could help them. We could guide their hands." Treebeard looks at her. "Would you?" he asks. "Would you leave Fangorn again?" The question is not accusation. It is simple curiosity. Brownhair closes her eyes. She sees the faces of the men she taught, the children who ran at her feet. She sees the boy with the chipped tooth, now grown. She sees the way the soil there answered her. She sees the deep, cool shade of Fangorn, the ancient trunks, the slow conversations. I do not know, she says. My heart is in both places. I am divided. Treebeard nods slowly. That is the way of the world now, he says. Divided, mixed. Men and elves, dwarves and hobbits, all their fates tangled. We are not apart from it, though we have tried to be. He looks up at the canopy. I will stay, he says. I am Fangorn. I cannot leave. If this forest must fade, I will fade with it. Quickbeam lifts his head. I will stay too, he says, for a time. There is still much to do. There are hills I have not yet walked. There are streams I have not yet drunk. Some of the younger Ents murmur agreement. Yet among the Entwives, there is a stirring. We are not bound as you are, says Strawhair. We have walked fields and forests. We have crossed rivers. We have planted in many soils. Perhaps we can walk again. Brownhair feels a sudden, wild thought take root. What if, she says slowly, we did not choose? What if some of us stayed and some of us went? What if we were both? The idea is radical for beings who have always thought in terms of great, unified movements. Yet the world has changed. The old certainties are gone. Some Entwives, she continues, could go to the Garden March. Others could go to Ithilien, where the king plants new trees. Others could go north, to the Shire, to help the hobbits with their gardens. We could be scattered seeds. Treebeard's eyes widen. Scattered seeds, he repeats. Whom? That is a thought. He looks sad, but also, strangely, relieved. We have held together so tightly, he says. Perhaps it is time to loosen our grip. The world will not come to us. We must go to it. There is much talking after that, much thinking, much singing. In the end, they do as Brownhair suggests. Some Entwives, including Strawhair and Darkbark, go east, back across the Anduin, to the Garden March. They find the fields changed, the hedges older, the men different. The boy with the chipped tooth, now grey at the temples, weeps when he sees them. You came back, he says. We said we did not know if we would, Strawhair answers, smiling. Now we know. They teach a new generation how to read the soil, how to listen to the river. They stand at the borders when raiders come out of the east, their hands raised, and the earth itself rises to meet the threat. Some Entwives go south to Ithilien, where Legolas and his elves plant saplings among the ruins. They teach the men of Gondor who settle there how to make orchards, how to tend vineyards without exhausting the land. They stand in the new gardens of Emin Arnon, where Faramir and Éowyn make their home, and watch children run among the trees. In the Shire, on a summer's day, Sam Gamgee stands in his garden at Bag End and looks up in astonishment as a tall, slender figure steps through his gate. Begging your pardon, he says, his hands full of trowel and seed packet. Can I help you? The figure smiles, her hair a cascade of flowers. I think I am here to help you, she says. I have heard much of your gardens, Master Gamgee. You may call me Blossom. Sam's eyes widen. Are you one of them, Entwives? He asks, his voice hushed. Blossom nods. Sam laughs, a little helplessly. Well, he says, I never. Rosie, love. You will not believe who has come to tea. In Fangorn, Brownhair stays. She walks among the old trees. She talks with Treebeard. They argue, gently, about hedges and wildness, about order and chaos. They plant saplings at the edges of the forest, where it meets the fields of Rohan. Sometimes, when the wind is right, she stands on a hill and feels, faintly, the touch of her sisters in distant lands. A a sense of soil turned, of seeds sprouting, of children laughing. She smiles. "We are scattered," she says, "but we are not lost." Years pass, decades, centuries, men's kingdoms rise and fall. The line of LOTR continues for a time, then fades. The elves are gone over the sea. The dwarves delve and delve, then dwindle. The hobbits keep to themselves, their doings small and quiet. The Ents and Entwives endure, but even they are not untouched by time. Fangorn shrinks, slowly. Trees die and are not replaced in the same number. The younger Ents are fewer. Some Entwives in distant lands find that men no longer listen as they once did. They plant, and men cut. They advise, and men ignore. In the Garden March, the river changes course one year, cutting a new channel. The old dike breaks, floods sweep through the lower fields. Strawhair stands in the water, her hair plastered to her bark skin, and sings until her voice is hoarse, but she cannot hold it all back. Afterward, she stands on a hill and looks at the wreckage. "Once," she says, "we could turn whole floods. Now we do what we can." In Ithilien, Darkbark watches as men build more houses, more roads. The orchards are still tended, but beyond them the wild places shrink. She walks one day to the edge of a new road and stands there, watching carts go by. A boy on one of the carts, his face smudged with dust, looks up and gasps. "Mother," he says, tugging at the sleeve of the woman beside him. "A tree, a walking tree." The woman glances, then laughs. "That is only an old stump. Love," she says. "Do not let your eyes play tricks on you." Darkbark stands very still. After the cart has gone, she steps back into the shade. "We are stories again," she says softly. In the Shire, Blossom sits on a low hill and watches Sam's grandchildren play. Sam is gone now, sailed west with Frodo. Rosie is gone. Their children are old. Their grandchildren are small and bright and full of questions. "Tell us the story of the party tree," they beg. "Tell us how it was cut down and grew again." Blossom tells them. She does not tell them that she feels herself thinning, her sap running slower. She does not tell them that sometimes, when she looks at the party tree, she sees it as it will be in 100, 1,000 years. Gone, replaced by others, its memory only in song. In Fangorn, Treebeard stands on his knoll and listens. The forest is quieter than it once was. There are fewer voices. The wind still speaks, but more softly. Brownhair stands beside him. "Will we fade?" she asks. Treebeard thinks for a long time. "Everything fades," he says at last. "Even mountains, even stars. We are no different. We are only slower." Brownhair nods. "I do not fear fading," she says. "I fear being forgotten." Treebeard looks at her, his eyes deep. "We have planted ourselves in many hearts," he says. "In men's hearts, in hobbits, in elves before they went. We have walked in their stories. We have stood in their gardens. We will not be wholly forgotten, not while any of their kind remain." He hesitates. "And if, in the end, no one remembers us," he says, "the trees will remember, the soil will remember. That is enough." Brownhair looks out over Fangorn. She sees, in her mind's eye, the Garden March, Ithilien, the Shire. She sees children planting seeds, men tending orchards, hobbits pruning hedges. She sees, in the cracks of old stone, small green shoots. "We scattered," she says. "We took root. We changed the world. A little." Treebeard smiles, a slow, creaking smile. "That is all anyone can do," he says. even the great powers, even Sauron. In the end, the world grows around them. They stand in silence for a time. The light through the canopy is golden. The air smells of pine and old rain. Far away, in a ruined corner of Mordor, a sapling pushes up through the cracked earth. Its leaves are small and pale. Its roots find, deep down, a pocket of soil that still holds memory of growth. There is no one there to see it. No men, no elves, no dwarves, no hobbits, no Ents, no Entwives. The sapling trembles in the faint breeze. Its leaves whisper. In that whisper, if anyone were there to hear, there is an echo of a song once sung in a forest and in a field, by voices deep and voices high, of roots and branches, of seed and harvest, of parting and return. The sapling grows. Years later, when the last stories of walking trees have faded into myth, when scholars in distant lands argue over whether Ents ever truly existed, a child in a small village on the edge of an old thin wood will sit under a tree and feel, for a moment, as if the trunk behind his back is breathing. He will tell no one. He will grow up and forget. The tree will stand, its roots deep, its branches reaching for the sun. In its heartwood, very faintly, something remembers a garden, a forest, a march of tall figures against a burning sky. The world moves on. The Entwives do not come back to Fangorn again. But sometimes, when the wind is just right, the leaves whisper to one another of a time when they walked,